Now, have you ever asked a child to tell you a story and they were so clueless? Like you go ahead and give them ideas. Oh, think about the story with the three little pigs. Think about the story with the big bad wolf or the big bear, the three bears and the girl. Like you give them all these clues, but they still are so clueless. They don't know where to begin or end. And that's where talk writing comes in. Hi, this is Dee, and welcome to another episode of Glowing Up Your Teaching Experience. Sounds so good. Anyway, today I want us to talk about talk for writing because I am doing this very exciting thing in my class called Talk for Writing, and I thought to do a video about it just to enlighten a teacher or two about it, what exactly it is, and how it looks like in my class. Now, have you ever asked a child to tell you a story and they were so clueless? Like you even go ahead and give them ideas. Oh, think about the story with the three little pigs. Think about the story with the big bad wolf or the big bear, the three bears and the girl. Like you give them all these clues, but they still are so clueless. They don't know where to begin or end. And that's where talk for writing comes in. So, talk for writing, what it does, it helps kids live in the story, it helps children retell the story, it helps children build and rebuild the story, and eventually they're able to come up with their own story similar to the story you have read. Okay, let me try and explain that a little bit more. So, like at the moment, I'm doing the Three Little Pigs with my class. So what we're doing is we first read the story. I give them cards in another lesson, of course, to kind of rearrange the pictures to show me how the story builds up using pictures. Now, remember, my class is EAL, and that is why this is an amazing strategy if you're teaching EAL students. So I give them all these cards to kind of rearrange them and retell the story from their own understanding. Then we can do this for a lesson or two. And then now we start working on the story, memorizing it, giving it some actions. And children love this. I've done this for a couple of years now, and every time I do it, they get so excited about it. So you let them choose the actions they want. So you can have like once upon a time, there lived three little pigs, like whatever they choose, just go with it. Let them own it. Let them live in the story. And then also trying to break down the language to make it as simple as possible. So, like shortening some sentences if you have to, changing words and replacing them with easier words so they can easily remember. And you see, the moment the story clicks, then they're able to, remember what goes where, what happens in the story, and things like that. So, like for my younger kids, I use Three Little Pigs, which is a very easy story and it has a bit of repetition. I'm thinking if you had older kids, you would choose a different story to, do talk for writing with. Now, what then happens after we're able to we've memorized the story, we've been able to retell the story using some actions, and we can do this like wake a child up in the middle of the night. They go like, once upon a time, there lived three little pigs. Once we have achieved that, then we start now working on the story, breaking it down. So the first thing I do is I could have like a story map, something like this, and then I remove some parts of the picture, some parts of the map, and I asked the kids to draw for me what happened in those parts. Now, remember, the kids I'm working with don't really have the ability to write sentences yet. So we're still working on that. So what the magic can do is try and use images as much as possible, make them draw and talk about it. Okay, and they love it. So I leave out some parts of it and I ask them to draw for me what they think happens in those. And because they've been seeing this for weeks, then they're able to remember and draw what's missing from that. And then what we do next is we try and change the characters. Now, it's not three little pigs. What else can we have in this story instead of the three little pigs? So, once upon a time, there lived three little rats. I don't know. And then they have to say where they live. Now, change the setting as well. Now, remember, as we are building up on as we're working on this story every other week, we're also introducing words like characters. Who's a character in a story? What is a setting in a story? And showing using the story that we're focusing on, so that eventually we are now changing characters. But we're going to start with pigs, maybe just the pigs, and change it to something else. And then we're going to change the setting. What happens where does this story happen other than, you know, in the forest, in the woods where they build the houses? And then we will change the materials. Like, I love doing this in second term because it gives me an opportunity to link it to science topic materials. So I'm like, oh, now we're going to change the materials that the three little pigs used, and we're going to use other materials that are similar, that have similar properties. So we want something that is as weak as the grass. We want something that's not as strong, like comparable to the sticks, and we want something as strong as the bricks. So now this helps them link the English to their science, which again is amazing at this point, because I'm reinforcing the vocabulary in science, we learn in science, in an English lesson. Makes me a very proud teacher, huh? So once we have changed the setting, we've changed the characters, we now know the story like by heart. The next thing we need to do is rewrite the story, make it ours. So now we're going to change the entire story and replace everything to have our own stories. And by the time we get to this point, a lot of the kids, remember, we are working on English and phonics like together. So at this point, a lot of kids can write one sentence for every part of the story. So I normally give them like 5 sentence starters. Once upon a time, one day, suddenly, luckily, and finally. So they have to use these 5 sentence starters to write a story. So they can have a story like, once upon a time, there lived 3 little tigers. One day, they decided to go and build the houses. The first little tiger changes the material, of course, and second. And then we also have to change the villain, not the big bad wolf, but what can be a villain to a tiger. So they have to think about that too. And so by the end of the term, we will have written a 5 sentences story, which is huge for these kids, and the parents love it. The parents come at the PTC for this term. The parents always come and they're like, "What's with the 3 little pigs?" Like, they're always singing, "Once upon a time there were 3 little pigs." So we're gonna also have to educate parents on, why we're doing this, why this is so important. And now by the end of the term, if you go to the same kids and tell them to tell you a story, they may not they may choose a different story that you read to them, that's not necessarily the 3 little pigs, but you see, they can easily sequence the story verbally. A lot of them just tell you the same story, which is perfectly fine, but a few can now tell you a different story, but still sequencing it like the one you've already done. So it's a really great starting point for your EAL students, even for native speakers, to get started on stories. So why do I think this is an amazing strategy to teach stories? One, it reinforces vocabulary. Like I've mentioned, we've managed to link our English lessons to a science lesson. So we're not just reinforcing the storytelling vocabulary. I'm also using this as an avenue for me to reinforce my science vocabulary, which is something I always do. I try to pick topics that are kind of connected every term, so that whenever we're teaching one thing, we're reinforcing in a different subject, which really works for EAL students because you're constantly using the same words. The same vocabulary. And then the second reason why it's really an amazing strategy is because it gives EAL students vocabulary to tell stories. It helps them be able to tell stories, because the short sentences, the actions, makes it very easy for them to remember. The third reason why, it gives a structure that the children can rely on. So even those who don't like stories, they now have a structure to rely on. And this can link to grade 2, 3, 4 story mountain. You can easily link it to the story mountain. Once upon a time, the introduction, one day raising action suddenly, then you have, you can easily link it to the story mountain nicely. That's why I said it can work in learners of any age. So it gives a structure for students to be able to follow whenever they're telling stories. And finally, it gives the students confidence to say stories and to write stories, because now they have a template in their minds that they can always use when telling stories and when writing stories. This really helps them become confident storytellers and confident writers of stories. So it's a really amazing approach. Please try it. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Um, Let me know how you find it. If you try it, let me know how you found it if you've already tried it. And yeah, until next time, thanks so much for watching and God bless. Bye bye.